In today's video, I want to talk to you about some of the cinematic B-roll that I shot with a client last week for a video. And I also want to talk about some of the things that I was really happy about with it and some of the things that I really was not happy about with it. And maybe in future videos and future projects that you might have with clients, you can avoid those mistakes to produce even better content for them. So here is how the video looks like. So as you can see, I had a lot of inspiration from my man, James Matthews. Definitely check him out on YouTube. He taught me how to handhold a camera and to actually create some beautiful slow motion shots. Overall, this video did come out pretty good. I mean, the client was ecstatic about it. But for me, I felt like I could have pushed my limits even further. But there were also some massive technical mistakes with this video. Maybe you noticed it, maybe you didn't, but I'll cover that in this video as well. But before we start critiquing my own B-roll video, I do want to talk about some of the gear that I used to shoot this, because the content that I've been posting on Instagram, a lot of people want to know what software I use, what kind of equipment I use. So I'm going to talk about that briefly. I'll also leave links on where you can pick some of this equipment up, because some of it is a must-have. First things first, to capture some of the BTS of my cinematic B-roll, I use the Insta360 camera with the 360 mod. I made a full review video of this camera right here, so make sure you check it out. This is a great tool to just capture B-roll of your B-roll or B-roll of your shoot. And I used a cold shoe mount, and I also used a tripod and a selfie stick, a tabletop tripod. And I just mounted this on either my camera or I put it on a table somewhere and I let it just roll for hours. So that's how I was able to capture some of this BTS that you're looking at right now. And it's just overall a very handy tool. Now, the equipment that I was shooting with, I was using 3 Aperture 120Ds. One of them was a Mark I, 2 of them were Mark IIs, and I basically just bounced it off of the ceiling. So I made sure that it was at 100% brightness. 2 side 120D Mark IIs were pointed up at the ceiling to create a nice ambient light. And then I had one softbox pointed at the food and at the subject. And that softbox is the Light Domini attached to the 120D Mark I. Now, those lights are very expensive, so if you're looking for cheaper options, Godox makes some excellent lights. I actually just reviewed their SL150W Mark II, and I have one actually back there in my studio. I'll leave some links in the description box below where you can pick up some of those lights, and also check out my review for the Godox right here. So back to the camera I was using the Sony A9 and my Zeiss 24-70. Now for those of you who don't know, the Sony A9 does not have any picture profiles, and it's honestly the only 4K camera I own, so I was stuck with using that camera. I also made sure that I was capturing 120 frames per second the whole entire shoot because I just knew that it was going to be slow-mo for most of it. And I kept it at 1/250th shutter. A lot of the shots were actually shot at 50mm to 70mm just so I can get that shallow depth of field. And most of these shots were also shot on manual focus. Now I'm still learning how to properly control manual focus when I'm doing some crazy roll movements with the camera, but manual focus is the only way to capture these shots. There were maybe 1 or 2 shots where I used automatic focus, but here is my first mistake with the video: manual focus. A lot of the shots were actually not a lot, but maybe 2 of the shots, the main shots actually, were out of focus. And I didn't realize this until I imported my footage into Final Cut Pro, which is the software I've been using. And I thought to myself, damn, how do I fix this? So I thought maybe I could add an anamorphic flare to actually take the edge off of the stuff that was not in focus. And overall, I think a lot of people didn't notice that it was out of focus, which is good. But for me, I definitely knew that it was out of focus. And then there was one shot that was blatantly out of focus, and that was the cutting shot when Chef was cutting the veggies on the cutting board. That shot was just completely out of focus, and unfortunately, it was the only cutting shot I had with that cool transition. The transitions we're gonna talk about too briefly, and that's actually what made this video kind of fluid, so it kind of looked like it was all done in one take. So another question that you're probably asking is, how did I shoot this? Overall, if we take a look at the BTS, I'm constantly handheld, again, 120 frames per second. This allows me to slow it down to 20% in post. So a lot of the movements are smoothed out because of that slow motion. There is another way to get smooth shots though, and that is to be very quick. So boom, roll, boom, dolly in, dolly out, boom, 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 really, really quick. The slower you are, the more bumps you are going to see in your shot, especially if you're shooting in slow motion, believe it or not. If you make it in just one quick motion, it's gonna be so seamless. Another question that I got asked was, is this planned? Was this shoot planned? The answer is no. There was no pre-production planning. There was no storyboard or anything like that. Everything was done right on the fly. And sometimes it's great, sometimes it isn't. I know for a fact that if I would have planned this shot out or planned this shoot out prior, it would have looked 10 times better, but we honestly didn't know what we were going to do until we started doing it. So sometimes you have to be working with what you got. And besides my bad focusing mistakes and a few of my compositional errors, I really do think that this video came out pretty good for what it was. I mean, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. There's definitely some things I can do a lot better in my future cinematic B-rolls. But overall, I think the client was really happy. Now, along with getting those really quick camera movements, I also made sure to think about my transitions as I was shooting. What kind of foreground can I have that I can transition into the next shot with? That's really important. And sometimes I didn't have any foreground at all. So in editing, I made sure to create my own type of drop-down transition. And make sure you're following my Instagram because I do post a lot of helpful tip videos on editing and shooting. Check it out, momentum_productions. I make a ton of quick tip videos for you. So if you take a look at my face here, you can see that I'm just trying to plan out my shots. What kind of foreground can I use? That foreground plus that quick movement creating that motion blur allows us to blend in from one shot to the next. On top of that, I also use the edge of the counter as another transitional point, and what I did in editing was I used masking. And I did a full comprehensive tutorial on masking, so make sure you check that out right here because that video is going to help you create those seamless transitions. That motion blur is really a great way to create that seamless transition seamlessly. Really seamlessly, easily. Those are two words that I'm going to be using a lot, but that's the truth. Motion blur is key. On top of that, I used a lot of zoom in transitions using the same color. For example, I zoomed in multiple times onto the chef's jacket. It's white, so is the ceiling, so I was able to create a transition from the jacket to the ceiling pretty easily. But because it was so quick, you really couldn't tell what's going on. And all I did in editing was keyframe a zoom in and a zoom out. I did the same thing with the egg drop, and that's another really important shot. I used a plate of plexiglass, and plexiglass is a great material to use, especially as a splash guard for your camera. So if you want to create that third dimension in your videos, especially for cooking videos, definitely consider using plexiglass because you can get under a lot of cool things. I used it for multiple videos, and overall it keeps the picture quality high. Plexiglass works very well with your lenses, and I'll leave a link down below where you can pick some up. I personally have 2 plates of plexiglass and I use them non-stop for cooking videos. So if we play back this footage here on my timeline in Final Cut Pro, you can see how complicated things are. I added some sound design too. I did not use any of the original audio that I recorded with my camera. That's because I want crisp, clean audio. And I used 2 different sources for sound effects and the music. I used Artlist for the backing track, and I used Epidemic Sound for those individual sound effects. Here's how the footage looks like with just the sound effects and no music track. And sound design, guys, is really what sells this video to make it more realistic. If we take a look back at my timeline in Final Cut Pro, things are looking pretty chaotic if you look at how many layers I'm using. That's mainly the sound effects. Also, whenever I use those masking transitions, I stack video clips on top of each other because they have to overlay in order to create a seamless transition without any black areas or black spots in the shots. You don't want one shot to randomly flicker a black color and then go to another shot. You want everything to overlap and seamless transition from one shot to the next. And there were certain areas where I didn't feel like there was enough motion blur to make it more seamless, so all I did was I added some extra artificial motion blur to help out with that blending. I mean, overall, guys, this was an awesome shoot. I had a lot of fun. My clients had a lot of fun. They were overall really happy with the video. But me as a filmmaker, I know that I need to critique each type of work that I do and see how I can improve myself for future videos. And I appreciate your guys' critique. It really means a lot. But we know we're always learning. I'm always learning. I'm sure you're always learning. And this is how we become better filmmakers and how we overall can just make our clients even happier for the next shoot. Also, don't forget, I'll be leaving links to all of the equipment that I used in today's video, so check out the description box below because there's definitely some cool things that I'm sure you guys will be using. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if this video has helped you out, please give it a like and subscribe with those notifications turned on, and I'll see you in the next video.